Hi, I'm Anthony Marinelli, and I'm here with my longtime friend, Kevin Maloney, who was the former product specialist from the Los Angeles Synclavier store when they opened in 1984. And we have the pleasure and the great privilege to be in his studio, where he has 2 Synclavier systems and 3 keyboards. And we're at the main computer keyboard right now, and this was one of the later versions with sampling and FM. So we're going to dive into it, and we're going to show you samples, we're going to show you FM sounds and some famous sounds that Kevin programmed. You'll know those songs. Please like and subscribe to the videos, and we want to keep making them, and it really helps us out. Here we are. Let's get into it, Kevin, because you showed me some pretty fun stuff. I didn't even know all this stuff that you were involved with. You play me some sounds from Michael Jackson.
Yeah, you want to show the Synclavier record, the demonstration record?
However you want to start. Okay. Kevin acquired this.
Since vinyl is such a big thing right now, this was even before I went on board, that they advertised in Keyboard Magazine to get this demonstration record of the incredible sounds of the Synclavier II. If you send in $1, we'll send you this demonstration record. And programming and sounds are done on here by Denny Yeager, Bill Keenan, and Patrick Gleason. So
from Headhunters.
Yeah.
Herbie Hancock Headhunters.
I recently got this off of eBay. So I just had to have it. I never had one. What was interesting was the Beat It sound, the introduction to Beat It, was actually on this blue record. Michael, the story I heard was Michael liked it, put it on the beginning of Beat It. When they found it was actually off of a record and it had been recorded by somebody else. They wanted to recreate that sound from the Synclavier, which was, it was one of the presets that Denny Yeager programmed. And Denny Yeager actually performed the notes, and I'm going to show you what that record actually sounded like. We have to get close here to finding it. Yeah, pretty close. We'll hear a couple other sounds. When it gets there, you'll hear
some early music.
Here we go. Nope, it's right after this.
After this marimba.
Okay. You can edit that out.
This was a good marimba sound then.
Yeah. Here we go. Seven notes. So that was a composition that Denny never got credit for. But what they did was they recreated it. Were you there for that when they did the intro to Beat It using the Synclavier?
No.
Here's the actual sound, the preset that was on the disc. This was before they even named the sounds. They had a printout of the names of the sounds, but it was on a disc, and you just call that bank 1 entry 6 or something. And this is. I know that sounds a little different because it
helps. I think if you hit it longer, you get the full ring. Otherwise, you get kind of a short attack on it.
How about reverb? Now the reverb will help.
Check it out. So play those 7 notes. There you go. That's the composition.
Right.
So Michael really liked that record.
Right. He liked it. They just replayed those notes.
Now my understanding was Don Dorsey brought his Synclavier in and had that sound on it, but I'm not 100% sure.
Could have been.
It might have been on Tom Baylor's system if it made the rounds over there, and I came in a little bit after that initial session.
Michael liked to go get the original sounds as much as he could. Like he liked that. I worked for Michael for about 6 months creating sounds. He had just wanted. He called me up and said, "Can you come to the studio?" And I said, "Sure." And I was nervous, but met him, and he goes, "I'd like you to make sounds for me." I said, "Okay, what kind of sounds?" "Anything unusual." "Well, like bass sounds, guitar sounds, drum sounds, anything unusual." So I would just go up to his house 2-3 times a week and just sit at the Synclavier. And
he had one there?
Yeah, he had his Synclavier at his house.
This is after Thriller. This is after.
This is
Bad.
prior to the Bad album. So pre-production for Bad. So I created a bunch of sounds, like just probably 200-300 sounds.
Wow.
And he liked a lot of it. And he would come into the studio and listen. I'd create a little sequences with the Synclavier sequencer. And he came in and listened. And one time I was playing a little groove, and he said, "You really like music, don't you?" I said, "Yes, I do."
Yeah, kind of.
And he said, "Okay." So I wasn't there when he was composing much. John Barnes would come in.
Mm-hmm.
I'd work at night. I had a day job working at New England Digital as a product specialist. It was a great job, getting to train people and to give demonstrations to just everybody. Joni Mitchell got a demonstration for Herbie Hancock at his house, Chick Corea at the studio all night long. It was a great job, best job in the world. But Michael said, "Can you come and do sounds?" And I said, and he wanted me to come at 10 o'clock in the morning. I said, "No, I can't, because I got this job." And I said, "But I can come at night." So I'd work up there at night.
I see.
One of the sounds that he did like a lot was this bass sound, and John Barnes used it when they were writing Smooth Criminal. I didn't know what the song was at the time. I had no idea. I just heard the groove, and I go, "Oh, that's cool." Later, Michael wanted me to recreate the sound, because he says, "Did you record that sample?" And I said, "No, I got it for somebody else, and I created the sound from that." And he said, "Would you come to the studio and recreate that? I want an original, real hi-fi sound of that." And I said, "Okay." So I knew the technique of how to create that sound. I won't give it away. It's a kind of a secret. But
Is it a sample?
Yeah, it's a sample. I'll show you. So it was called a muted piano. So there's the sound.
Great sound. So yeah, it's like a grand piano.
But when you take that sample and raise it up, now you got a musical tone. You can hear it better.
Sure.
It's not the low A anymore on the piano. It's so that's the sound from Smooth Criminal. But when he recorded it, they added, I think it was a mini moog. So they added.
Let's hear it. Oh yeah.
So together. So that's basically the sound.
So you get, it's the Synclavier partial, timbre system, allowing you to do multiple timbre sounds, two sounds at once.
That's only two partials. It's a stereo sample. It takes up two voices, and then you have a monophonic sample of a mini moog.
The mini moog sample.
And those samples were, I think I sampled George Duke's mini moog. He brought it to the studio once, and we just went through a sampling session.
And that's the sample from that?
I don't know if that was the one they actually used, but it was part of the Synclavier library and stuff.
Yeah.
I ought to call it that. I tried to recreate the Smooth Criminal so you could hear all the sounds that were going on in the song. I didn't create all of these sounds, but it's pretty close.
There it is.
Yep.
With the 80s snare. Harmony.
So that's, you got the basic sound, track one.
Whoa, 1 second. The Synclavier has something very interesting, a sequencer.
That's right.
So this isn't MIDI.
Right. This
Just
is
explain
not
that for a second.
Yeah, the Synclavier sequencer started off as a 16-track sequencer. Actually, Cameron told me that the Synclavier I was only like 8 tracks.
Cameron's one of the inventors of the he's the software inventor, and Sid Alonso was the hardware inventor.
So when they created this keyboard, they expanded it out to 32 buttons, but you can also assign them up to 200. So you can have 200 tracks. So it's like a workspace. So as you create your sounds and you store that, they call it a recorder, a real-time recorder, sequencer. You store that, it stores all the timbres that you've designed and put in there. When you call it that button, you call it the button or a named file, it calls up that entire thing, all the sounds, just gathers them all together.
Yep, and puts them in there. And right now, what is this? The Mini Moog sounds soloed. So whatever sound is on track 1, you can grab. Whatever sound is on track 2. It's as quick as that.
It's a fire extinguisher.
Whatever sound is on track 3. Looks like your drum kit.
That's the kick drum for that. 4.
The gated snare.
I don't remember which pitch. Yeah.
That sounds like it. Okay, so back to the sequencer.
Oh, well, actually, track 5, I think, was actually an FM.
The harmony.
Yeah, that's just an FM only sound. But you could mix your FM sound with, what if you like that sound? And you say, well, what about you can select a partial. Say I want to get the Mini Moog, which was on partial 2 of that other sound. I can select just that partial. Now I got the FM.
Oh, without the piano.
Yeah.
Very quick.
Yeah,
Well, so go ahead with the sequencer. Like layer in the sounds one at a time. You can see how it works.
So we got.
Because you can solo tracks, just like on a multi-track recorder.
There's the kick drum. Snare.
Real-time transposition. Octave below.
Pretty cool. One of the cool things that the Synclavier can do is it samples itself. So when you create a sound, you want to modify it. Let's say you pick up let's say we create a new snare sound for the Smooth Criminal. Want to change the tuning. Maybe add the kick drum to it. Oh, that's not what I want.
Oh, kick snare?
Kick is here. No, 3. Oops.
So he's changing just one of the partials. Okay.
Let's gate it.
So now there's a kick and a snare. That's pretty good. I mean, so you could just use it as is,
Right.
or you can create a whole new sample.
So go over here to the sampling page. CI. We'll sample it in stereo. Set our levels.
Stereo sampling.
Yeah, and just do it from here.
Just play it.
Stop.
There we go. Now you can see the waveform on the screen. He's going to put a new start on there. And it's that fast on the keyboard. And now you can put it in the sequence, right?
Yeah, let's take that snare drum, which was here. That's our new snare
Now it's
drum.
lower with a kick in.
Oh, we want to put a flanger on it.
So he just chorused it, which means making a copy of the sound and then detuning it. And it's that fast.
You could actually sample the whole sequence. Let's change the pitch of the entire sequence. You could actually sample that whole track.
Oh, just send it over there.
Check the levels.
What if, so you can sample it in real time. What if I wanted to sample just like,
Do that. Watch. Okay, let's, yeah. Yeah, you can do that. play that back, just like it is.
Sounds like it's an octave lower.
Oh, because we changed the tuning here, I think, overall tuning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it polyphonic?
Yep.
Is it polyphonic?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can... What about just chorus? I mean, it doesn't sound so awesome. Endless possibilities, though, with this thing, and super fast. I don't think anyone realizes, like an instrument that came from way back then, you know, that it was really a real-time. It was partially designed to be a real-time performance instrument because John Appleton, the product specialist, you know, very similar to Herb Deutsch, who was the product specialist for Moog, who really urged Bob Moog to put a keyboard on the Moog synthesizer and make it be a playable, tuned performance instrument. I think John Appleton had a huge influence on making the Synclavier B have this sort of playability and real-time interactability.
Yeah, he would use pedals and assign pedals to different functions and play it live and actually turn tracks on and off live as he would record as he was going and just recreate something, you know, new every time.
A solo, like, virtuoso instrument. So it really has a lot of applications, and it also ended up becoming like a post-production tool for Foley and ADR and special sound design, sound effects, and that sort of thing.
Jurassic Park was a lot of the sound effects, most of the sound effects for Jurassic Park were created on here. Because if you want to create a dinosaur, where are you going to get a dinosaur sample? You get your cat to go, meow, and then you just lower it 4 octaves and add a...
Well, Brian and I did Starman, and that Starman is all sound. We did the sound design for Starman, the mothership and all sorts of space sounds. That was Synclavier. We did Clan of the Cave Bear. I mean, there's so many applications for this thing.
Yeah.
I want to hear more of your Michael Jackson.
All right.
Back to albums.
Let's go, Let's do...
Oh, I see some fun things in there.
I'll tell the We Are the World story. One of my first professional gigs, they told me, they're recording this song called We Are the World, and Quincy wants to create an intro for this song. They had already recorded the song. Synclavier was set up, I think it was A&M Studios.
It was.
Yeah. Said Synclavier was all set up in the control room. They want to create an intro. So I went over there, and Quincy says, I want a bunch of bells. I want to send out bells to call all the people of the world to come and hear this song. So I said, okay. So I started calling up my Synclavier FM sounds, bell sounds, and I started messing with it. Got a kind of couple of cool sounds. And he comes in and listens. He goes, no, those are silver bells. I need golden bells. They left. I was like, oh my gosh.
There you go.
What do I do?
Quincy.
So I started tweaking the FM ratio. So let's say you called up this church bell.
Is that where you started?
And then maybe I had it too high or something. So if I started messing with the FM ratio, so I started messing with it. In about 5 or 10 minutes, he comes walking back in and he goes, yeah, that's it. So
you turned silver into gold.
Yeah. So
with
we
that
started off,
ratio.
I think we started off with this sound, which was let's just actually do it. I'm going to record it like we did it. So I recorded this. I'm not sure these exact notes. I can't remember exactly notes, but. Went on for a while. That's close enough. Then we added the church bell. And
notice how he stopped the recording when the sound was still ringing.
Right, because it's not tape. It's the sound continuing to ring on. Yeah. So then we added this. I'm going to try. I think I can hit this if I write it.
Wow.
Then I started working on a melody So I started with ideas. Something like that, right? So I started playing around with some melodies, and then he liked what we were doing so far, and Michael Amardian was there, and Quincy says, "Why don't you let Omar get in there and try something?" And he said, "I said, sure." So he got in. He played that melody. So he played the after the bong. Something like that.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I did it.
No,
so that was the whole thing.
back.
That was the whole intro.
So you guys constructed the intro on the spot, like starting out with just bells calling the world to come in, and then silver bells into gold bells, and then layers. You know, what was that big boom sound? Could you just hear that a second again?
This one, yeah. I called it Where Are the Worlds Are. I think I might have hit more notes.
It's a bell, but then it blossoms.
Yeah, here's the elements.
That's a great sound.
And it's in stereo and it's swirling all over the place.
Yeah, it's just swimming.
And it swells.
It really sounds like an intro.
Yeah. Cool sound. I hadn't even heard the song yet. They were just, do this.
But you put the intro on, then was the song already done with all the vocals?
Yeah, the song was done, and I don't even remember hearing how it worked in. They must have slid it to make it slide, or what did they do? They copy and print it on tape. It was on tape, so they would have copied what we recorded and put it on the front of the song, because I never heard the beginning of the song. We weren't timing it out. He
was working with multiple multi-track tape machines, so.
Oh yeah.
But it would have to be like that, like not like you would do it today. Like we would just, it would be on a hard drive, and we would just move it to the frame or to the beat and drop it in.
Synchronize it to SMPTE and say slide it until the downbeat happens right there. Yeah.
And then the machine would record it.
Maybe we did it that way, but I don't remember hearing the beginning.
Well,
of the song.
if there was a Synclavier with a hard, I guess they could have sampled it.
Possibly.
Right.
And then the whole thing.
Right, but who knows?
I think it was only an FM system that we were using.
Yeah,
I think
then they couldn't do it.
I think it was before polyphonic sampling was.
What year was We Are the World?
Not sure. 84, 85, 84.
Yeah.
I was young. I'm a newbie.
There was mono sampling.
Yeah.
Because I had a mono, but that was about it. I don't think there were too many poly systems or any.
Right.
Wow.
Let's see. I want to hear some other fun sounds. How about resynthesis?
Sure. The Synclavier could do some interesting things with FM synthesis.
You could take a sampled sound, label sections of the waveform, and then it will analyze it and break it down into its components and in frames, like frames of film, and fly through those frames very quickly. So, of course, I had to sample my own voice. I heard you guys did some early stuff.
Yeah, we sampled all of the Synclavier workers, like their names.
And I think I have those too. But this was here, Kevin. That was my.
It sounds like you,
Kevin.
This was it sounds primitive, but it's still kind of advanced.
Kevin. What's cool is you can go into the frames.
So how many frames are involved in this one?
That one's 29 frames.
Okay, so 29. So there's 29 individual snapshots, basically, all connected up, and they're like maybe 5 milliseconds, 10 milliseconds. They're really short lengths each frame. And then some of them go directly from frame to frame. Some of them crossfade so that they're smooth.
Right.
Some
and
of
each
them
one has a different
up.
pitch, different harmonics, a different pitch. So if you go into each frame, if I step through them,
wow, talks to you. Kind of love it like that, right?
let's go in there. You can change the attack time of that one frame. Kevin. Change the pitch. Kevin. Change the harmonics.
Super fun.
Wait, let's see.
So unlike a sample, you can go into the middle of the sound.
It's like putty.
Stretch
it's like Siller putty. Yeah, putty.
Or the front, or the end. You can change it.
You could create your dinosaur sound with that.
I mean, you could pretty much imagine anything. You could have it slide up to a high chord, a major chord, and then finish Evan.
Well,
pretty much
so
like that.
One of the New England Digital used to have a summer seminar at Dartmouth College, and people would sign up and go, and they could have lessons. They could have, you see, demonstrations. One of my classes was Resynthesis, and Pat Metheny was sitting right there.
Oh, you taught Resynthesis?
Yeah, I taught Resynthesis and Pat Metheny was in my class, and I was kind of starstruck, but he was sitting there with his big glasses taking notes as I was talking. But we sampled this girl from England. She was there. Anyway.
Gail?
Martin
Royer.
Martin Royer.
That's pretty good.
So we got two different two samples.
Martin.
So we're making so you can sustain
His
it.
name is Martin Royer. Martin Royer.
Royer.
And you notice that it doesn't speed up or slow down as you go up and.
Right. Unlike a sample.
Right, samples would slow down.
So just so everyone understands, this is like synthesizer technology. It's synthesizer waveforms. They're not samples.
Right. It's not
So
a
they're
sample.
very live sounds. You can go in and manipulate the middle of the sound, change it, redirect it. And like Kevin said, it's not going to speed up as you go up, and it's not like doing...
Here's just taking the vowel sound of a female vocal. Just taking that one, if you just listen to one, added a little vibrato to it.
This is Resynthesis?
It was taken from a resynthesized vocal. It only took one frame just to get the waveform.
This is great. So it's a formant, like one...
Right.
But with multiple partials, right?
Yep. Yeah,
How
just
many?
bounce them. Just bounce
How many
them.
do you have?
4.
And they're chorused or...
Different delays and pitches, so they...
So he took one frame from that, a vocal, right? One frame out of that, and then made 4 copies of it, detuned them, maybe some vibrato.
This keyboard, the Velocity keyboard, and it also had polyphonic pressure, which is becoming more in demand now. Some other synthesizers are coming out with keyboards that...
Right.
So you can change, you could play... You can put pressure on one key without affecting the others. You could also assign pressure to pitch. This is the range.
Also called polyphonic aftertouch by some manufacturers. Like a CS80, it has that kind of expressive ability.
Yeah. Where's the...
And this is a Prophet 8, right?
Prophet T8 keyboard. It started off when this was the latest one that they created. Jeff Tripp did a modification of it. He created a little bit better sensors and pressure sensors.
So they integrated it. Synclavier, again, another example of how they took a third-party thing. Like in the beginning, they took the monitor and the computer from an Able 60 computer, because they weren't a huge company like Yamaha or Roland, but they had the vision, to think we need this, and how can we integrate some other manufactured thing, and came up with a super expressive keyboard, as you can see.
Even the Morley pedals that controlled things, it started off as a Morley pedal, but it was no longer a Morley pedal because they just modified it. Yeah, right. And they sold them that way.
Yeah, those are light pedals. They have light bulbs in them.
Yeah, a lot of they didn't burn out.
Right, well, you got to change them.
Yeah. What else? Can we demonstrate stereo? Because we got stereo audio, right?
Of course. Amazing stereo.
Let's call up another sampled sound.
Really total control stereo. Ping-ponging.
This is a neat sound. I like this sound.
Random stereo.
So there's... Oh, that's alternating. So you got... Right. You can have it do a sine wave sweep back and forth.
Hold a note down.
I gotta make it centered first.
Beautiful.
There's our portamento.
And then there's random stereo too. That was always a fun one for He's changing the octaves of the different partials since it's multi-timbral. Again, how fast? You just go to the button right in front of you that says partial timbre tuning, and then you just turn the knob, and it's quantized right up to the octaves, but you can also get any subdivision inside there. You can get intervals, which he's doing now, or really adventurous atonality.
Horror movie.
Quite beautiful sounds, though.
So save it.
Yeah, save it. But you see, you have a sampling instrument here, and you have resynthesis, which is kind of in between the other part of the instrument, which is the engine that's a synthesizer engine. So the sampling engine basically is the model for resynthesis, and then that makes that sound with the synthesizer engine, which is the FM synthesis. And it uses the wave, it doesn't use the FM, but it uses this harmonic wavetable for each frame. So you could actually make any of those frames manually just by pushing these buttons, and you have all the overtone series here when you go through the buttons. We're in a different mode.
Right. The samples, so if you want to create.
Yeah, so you can just see the coefficients here. Follows the overtone series just like a pipe organ. And you're able to create sawtooth waveforms, square waves, triangle waves, any of the basic subtractive synthesis waveforms as well.
We should call up a couple of the orchestral sounds.
Yeah, you have those samples.
Yeah,
There's the
strings. And
pretty extensive orchestral library that New England Digital made. And many of the people that were owners made their own libraries that were fantastic. You can see it's loading the sounds in right now, one at a time.
Not super fast.
Yeah. And you want to look at the patch page over there?
Yeah, I'll show that, sure.
You can see how each one of these samples is going to be on a line, and usually sample every major third or something like that.
There we go. I can make this a little smaller.
And we did have memory concerns, but they did. They had polyphonic sampling.
Yeah, so here's the patch of this. This partial has cellos down here. And then on partial 2, there's another string patch.
And that's a nice one, smooth.
Together.
And they're in stereo. It sounds great.
I think the other one, don't they have the extra? No, there was another one where we had the attacks. If you listen to the soundtrack for The Princess Bride, you'll hear these strings all over it. The entire score for Princess Bride was done on the Synclavier.
Mark
Except
Knopfler.
for Mark Knopfler. I worked for about a week helping them get started.
Oh, you
on
did?
It. And, yeah, because they had just gotten polyphonic sampling and their direct-to-disc. So he recorded the guitar on the direct-to-disc along with some of the
That was with Rob Reiner.
Yeah. The first day of the session, the opening to the movie, we spent the whole day creating the intro, the music, the perfect blend, and Rob Reiner came in and stood there and they played it for him and he listened to it and says, it doesn't work. He goes,
That simple.
It's too good. It's too good. And Mark says, yeah, you're right. He goes, yeah, it gives the whole movie away. It gives it away. The whole story was told
So what
in
do
the
they
first
do?
minute or two of this. Just deconstructed it, started over, and kind of used the elements of it, and basically kind of remixed it. Took parts out, made it thinner, little pauses, little
well,
things.
he likes it. You know, I'll tell you, I was working with Jack Nietzsche on a movie called The Body with Rob Reiner. And Rob was coming in every day, and we were working on The Body, which was a Stephen King novel. One day he decides, we're throwing the whole score out. We're going to call the movie Stand By Me, and we're going to buy the score. We're going to buy the song. And so Jack was done. And so Brian Banks and I recorded the entire score with basically one resynthesized flute sound. So we're talking about resynthesis, right? Just playing the melody of Stand By Me. And that was, and so he liked a very deconstructed kind of thing. And then it was just a few cues used a lot in the movie, and it was a huge hit movie.
Yeah, because it leaves you wanting more. If you hear something very small and, you know, gives you a hint of what's coming.
Yeah.
Don't just blow it in the first 2 minutes of the movie.
Right, but very expressive, you know. That's
right.
his movie, you know, because the characters are all really emotional, deep characters. So just get the right sound. And the Synclavier was the perfect thing because we could get sort of a resynthesized flute. We could do it really fast because we only had like 5 days basically to get the thing out.
Right.
And a great keyboard because I think we just had this keyboard. Yeah, because it had the resynthesis.
Yeah, it's a great keyboard. The action on it was just right.
Right.
It's not as heavy as a piano, but not like as light as a synth keyboard.
Really expressive, and with the pedals too. You can
And it even had, mine's not working right now, but it has a ribbon controller on here too, so you can assign the pitch or the vibrato or all these into the ribbon controller.
Wasn't this a Yamaha?
I don't know where they got this one. The original one that they tried to use, you guys had one. There was one on that. You guys stuck it on there.
We stuck one on.
Yeah.
I think we just took the CS80 on.
But this,
we peeled it off.
This one on this keyboard wasn't working. I didn't use it too much because it never was great. I talked to Cameron and I said, you need to create a new ribbon controller. So find one.
Yeah,
it's
nice.
But the evolution of the Synclavier has been very interesting, starting with the Synclavier I, which I never saw. I know somebody who bought one at Cal State Dominguez Hills, Marcus Ryle. He was
8-channel sequencer?
I think it was 8 channels.
Yeah.
And Cameron, he says, I don't even think there was a partial timbre method to the FM synthesis. But they bought it, their first one, I saw his invoice, it was $12,000 for an 8-voice, an 8-track six.
For then.
Right.
Wasn't he from Oberheim?
Yeah. I met him at my high school. We were in the band room once, and he came in, and I was playing piano, and he came in, and I know that. And so we started sharing ideas and stuff.
Great stories.
Yeah. He went to work for Elisis, Oberheim, then he went to Elisis. He created the QS series keyboards, but also the ADAT tape recorder.
Yeah, he's quite a genius.
So from the Synclavier I, Cameron Jones, who was one of the original inventors, software writer, he actually constructed all the wood frames for that keyboard in his own shop, in his own house.
He's good with wood.
Yeah, he's good with wood. Very genius guy.
Quite.
Really funny guy. So anyway, so the Synclavier evolved to the next Synclavier II, which we saw earlier, which was the Synclavier II keyboard, or now it's called the Original keyboard, and expanded the sequencer to 16 tracks, and I think they added more voices. I think you could get up to 32 voices, and they added stereo, so you could do stereo panning of the voices, which didn't require 2 voices, but you could pan between the 2 DACs in it. Mm-hmm. So the evolution from that keyboard, next thing musicians wanted was velocity, to be able to play louder or softer, just like harpsichord to piano, right?
Yeah.
We want to be able to play louder or softer.
And they expanded this, right?
Yeah, they expanded the buttons from 16 tracks to the 32 buttons. They added one more panel, little easier access. Some of the stereo functions on the little keyboard were under hidden buttons. There was a blinking mode. You'd hit 2 buttons and
Blinking
the buttons
mode.
become different functions. They spread those out, and they actually brought those out so everything is accessible. So
Yeah, because they
one
started,
button per
in the
function.
beginning there was a button for everything, and then like more features and we're out of buttons. So we had to
that's right.
start hiding buttons. But they went back to form, which was have a button for everything, because that's what's so good about these, because it's like an analog approach to digital.
Yeah.
Which just means simply like it interacts with humans,
Yeah.
like analog
And
things.
these buttons were military buttons. They actually, you go look at the cockpit of a B-52 bomber, and you'll see these are the actual buttons that they're used on the bomber. And the reason they used them was they didn't glow too brightly in a dark cockpit. And that same thing in a dark studio.
They're the coolest buttons, right? I mean, look at that.
You can swipe. Some of them are sticky, a little aged.
Yeah.
Yeah, this keyboard's like 35 years old, so some of the buttons, like that one sticks.
But yeah, we used to do that. To shut them off, just swipe them
Yeah,
like this.
soloing. You solo the buttons.
Yeah.
They have a nice.
You can go into blinking mode here.
Yeah,
right?
different functions. Yeah, that would be the track that you would record on. If you turn all those tracks on, whichever one is blinking,
And those aren't.
that's the one.
So track 4 is blinking, so he's recording on it. And then if you solo track 4, there you go.
Oh,
And there's a click track, which you
Right.
can turn on or off
Right.
here.
yeah.
So we moved on to this generation of keyboard, and along with that came a big tower, so
Right.
bigger bins, so we could have more voice cards, MIDI, right? Talk
Right.
about some of the
MIDI.
additions that.
So
were
they
added.
added MIDI, they added SMPTE timecode generating and reading. Let's see.
And when I said more voices, I meant like polyphonic sampling.
Yeah, the
voices.
sampling voices, more memory. Memory was very expensive back then.
How expensive? Do you remember how much a meg?
$4,500 per megabyte.
So if you wanted 10 megabytes, what is that? worth?
$45,000.
And was
Everybody wanted
was
that
10
much
megabytes
memory.
enough?
No.
No. So
What-
if you wanted 32 megabytes,
Yeah.
45
Michael Jackson
times
could have
3.
32 megabytes. He could afford it.
Yeah, that's where we got into the price tag, into this like 200,000 plus. Just, because you've heard that these things run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's why. Because memory, they couldn't control that.
Right. And I bought my system. I bought my little FM system to begin with a little keyboard, and then I wanted sampling, so I bought a sampling module. Then I couldn't afford this keyboard. I bought a MIDI keyboard, so I could MIDI. But I added, you could expand on it, and you could add things, and they would repackage it.
Yeah.
I took out a $40,000 loan to get my sampling system, so I had 4 megabytes of RAM and 16 FM,
Well, maybe I'm
16
sure you-
sampling voices.
I'm sure
But
you built.
my lease payment got paid for because I just put it in a studio, and they paid
Yeah.
me monthly for it, and I had access to the studio, so it would pay, and then I would travel with it. I do sessions, and I got, people were paying good money to use the Synclavier.
Well, it was cutting edge technology. I mean, no one in the neighborhood even had a laptop, or people didn't have computers in their homes. So this level of memory was unheard of, and to get it to work in a musical system was a lot of R&D on their end.
Oh, yeah.
And then the cost was a lot just to buy the memory, just the medium itself. So that's why these instruments were so expensive. It wasn't like they were just like some elite company jacking up prices. They were barely surviving at these high prices too,
yeah.
because it was a limited customer base. So it was just an amazing time though, to be working with people that were that passionate about making the state-of-the-art instrument, right? And listening to us.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure they really listened to you.
Adding features. There were feature requests. It was a form, and people would ask if they got enough requests for a certain feature, they would just add it. Some of them were difficult to add. Some were not.
Right.
Some were pretty.
And
easy.
then we would get a new owner's manual. This is a real-time performance option. This came later, but when there would be new features sometimes, like a resynthesis manual, there'd be a whole new manual.
Right. Updates. Yeah.
And they were so well written. I mean, just so detailed.
Oh, yeah.
And you can just refer to them. I mean, it was just a great company to be involved with. Well, so we went from this keyboard to
so 30 years later,
right after a lot of change, in the company.
Arturia approached Cameron Jones about doing a virtual Synclavier FM synthesizer for the Mac. So a virtual, not VST if you want to call it
Right.
that. And Cameron said, yeah, I can do that. So this is not he created Synclavier V for Arturia. And it's not an emulation of the Synclavier, it is the Synclavier code. And the Synclavier code was just reformatted into a modern day computer. So he created the FM, he even added resynthesis later, and you could actually add a couple of samples in. So he created that, but he also kept the rights. He owns the trademark to Synclavier, the name Synclavier. He kept the rights to it, and he had other plans. He says, I want to create an iPad version, which is a touch screen, because that's kind of what emulate the buttons on the keyboard, which the Arturia product didn't have. I got involved with it. I wrote the manual for the Synclavier V program.
Oh, great, we have it.
Oh yeah. There's Synclavier Go. So here we have a keyboard. Here's a button panel. Same button panel, same functions, delay, attack for the sounds. There was no sequencer on this, but you had all the same functions in this, and virtually unlimited voices. He also made a version for the iPhone.
It's even on iPhone. Okay. I just think I didn't have a sound up. No timbres. Well, you can see it's basically a facsimile of the original.
Yeah.
And the buttons all work.
Yeah.
And they work the same way.
Touch.
I'm very comfortable with this because it's just like having a Synclavier in front of me, and the 4 partial timbres are right here. I'm not sure why I can't get a sound to play it.
This is Cameron's thinking. He was already thinking ahead. He was already planning a hardware device. People were talking about, well, we want a keyboard. So his next step, he said, I'm designing a hardware device. I had no exact idea what he was talking about. So what he created, next step was this hardware product, which is called the Synclavier Regen. It's a hardware playback, has all the FM synthesizer programming, voices, and he had added the samples. So you have sample patches and same functions that were in the big Synclavier. Virtually unlimited voices. The processor, the actual processor in it can handle I have hundreds of voices just on the keyboard like that. Instead of a knob and data entry knob, he chose to use a swiper. So
But they do sell the knob.
Yes, they do. I have it.
You can buy a knob.
It's somewhere over there on that
For
shelf.
those of us that like turning knobs.
You can actually hook the knob up to this and you can dial it in if you like that. I don't know if the thing is hooked up, but yeah, here's the Synclavier knob. The original spec of the knob. This plugs USB into the back of the.
And it works
Regen.
with this guy too.
Yeah, that's the Bluetooth.
Yeah,
Bluetooth MIDI.
you can make it work with the iPad version.
Yeah,
And you know what? What did they finally add to Regen?
Oh, filters, analog style filters. So now you can assign the filter to, let's see if I can find my clavinet. So just a straight clavinet sample. I assign the filter. With resonance, so now you have filters for the
Pretty
sample.
great. And this little desktop thing, and you can just go through all the string sounds, like everything you just heard over here.
Yeah,
And
I'll tell people what I was saying, how it's changed my life. I took my 35 years of samples and FM programming, and it all fits on a little SD card. This is, 32 gigabytes.
and you and I A-B'd the sounds, like with the original Synclavier.
Very, very close.
I mean, you couldn't, I don't know that I could say, if I heard a difference, I don't know which one would be the original. It's just like, because if you could remember it to that level of detail,
right,
then you could. But otherwise, I'm just like, well, it's the sound. They're both super close.
He really worked hard at creating the sound, the engine of the Synclavier. Yes, all the functions are all there, but to get it to sound the right way.
Yeah, and it's worth saying again, unlimited voices. Like, what synthesizer do you buy? I mean, do we not sound like salespeople? But it's because it's a part of our lives, and it's an intimate relationship that we've had with this instrument. Unlike any other, like, certainly like synthesizer, I mean, maybe I would have had that with Steinway if I was like Vladimir Horowitz or something. But that's the level that the people that worked on Synclavier in the 80s and 90s had with the company. We knew the people, we talked to them, they cared about us, and they designed instruments around state-of-the-art technology for state-of-the-art music, and musicians that really wanted to do something, like you said, Michael said, unusual.
Unusual, something different, something unusual.
And they've always been about that. So, I mean, if I had a hat, it's off to Synclavier and Cameron and the late Sid Alonso, who was the hardware genius behind Synclavier. So, I mean, we should do more of this. Because there's just a lot more, but this is like an overview of what the Synclavier can do and really what it's meant to us.
I tell people, so why do you... I only use this Synclavier sequencer, and Synclavier primarily is the center of I can MIDI to anything, and I do it. And somebody says, "Why don't you use other sequencers?" I go, "Well, I learned on this before the Macintosh existed. This is what I learned on. I learned piano, and I learned the Synclavier, and those are my two basic tools that I start with, and then I go on."
And you could also say, because I have a 200-track tape recorder in front of me.
Oh yeah, it's not a screen. You don't have to use the screen. You can sit there and just compose music.
So much easier on the eyes, isn't it? Not looking at a
so.
screen. Oh, it sure
I
is.
think so, yeah.
There's no blue light. I mean, we can go on and on. But thank you for watching this video. Please remember to like and subscribe. That would really help us a lot. Kevin Maloney, former product specialist, longtime friend. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, really. I mean, we see each other all the time, but this is a special time to sort of invade your space and really, go in your closet and see the old units and this particular unit. So check out the Synclavier when you can. Hope you enjoyed the video.
If you have a Synclavier and you're just interested, I am fairly functional at repairing Synclaviers. I know how to troubleshoot. I know where to get parts. I know somebody who can repair some of the parts. I just helped another Synclavier owner update his system and figure out what's wrong, so we know what to send back to fix. I'm not afraid to get my multimeter out and test voltages on power supplies and things like that.
Well, Synclavier is alive and well, 2023. So see you soon.
All right, thanks a lot.